Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, I'm late this morning. Well, I don't think I am. Normally I drop the kids off to school, so I don't think I start till 9, so I'm sort of early late. What shall I do? No, I'm going to go the fast way. Why not? So, hope you're well. We've just had a couple of Scorchio days, really nice. Hence the alluring tan. And let me just get my alluring wing mirrors in. This time of year, they haven't really trimmed the hedges much, so it forces the traffic into a tighter band in the middle. So, lots going on, lots going on. I'm going into work today. I've got my hours, I've got weird hours. I start 9 o'clock on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday because I take the grandchildren to school. I finish at 2 o'clock on Monday, Tuesday because I pick them up from school. We always used to, if we couldn't book the week up, we always used to have Thursday off. And then we would work Friday morning. So, and weirdly enough, it's a bit like when COVID came along and you think, oh, this is going to be the end of everything. And in fact, it isn't. You find that you're probably just making about the same amount of money. And it's the same with me. I can work 5 days a week and earn the same amount of money as working it's practically only 2.5 days a week. So that's what I've ended up doing. It's not by choice, I mean, my grandchildren are lovely, and to be honest with you, I've come to value the time I spend with them in the car in the mornings going to school. They're so funny. But, I mean, if other arrangements were being made to take them to school, it wouldn't, I wouldn't have got the job. So I only got the job because of circumstances meant that their school's on the way to my work, etc., stuff like that. So I've just had to adapt, which you do, don't you, as a father and a grandfather? You just have to, you're the bulwark, aren't you? You're the last port of call for everybody, the safety net, the firewall. So you pick up those problems that everyone else has tried and failed to solve. So, not that I mind that. I mean, I do recognise that is my role. So, and you get, and I think it's because you are, to a certain extent, you are Director of Resources in the final analysis. If somebody's washing machine breaks down and they can't do the washing, then it's your credit card that's most likely to have enough money on it to buy a washing machine. So, I'm going to blather on a bit about things in general and I'll just repeat what I've often said in these podcasts. This is not for you, right? This is not for you. This is for me. This is my podcast for me, okay? I'm going to, although I post all this stuff on YouTube, which might be a massive mistake, because I might end up getting a visit from Scotland Yard when you consider what I'm about to go into. But I also, I've got copies and backup copies of all my videos offline, and that's only because of the way, my generation. I was brought up when computers were invented in my lifetime, and file names could only have 8 numbers, and you couldn't swap between programs. You had to, if you wanted to do Excel, you had to close Word down. You couldn't just run Excel as well as Word. And data was quite frequently lost. I remember having a PC and then putting it in the boot of my car and taking it over to my uncle's so that we could do computer gaming. And lost the entire hard disk on the way over there because the reading and writing head on the hard disk wasn't parked in a safe space. In those days, hard disks were, when the hard disk stopped spinning, the read write head just used to stay where it had last been on the data surface, and of course all this jiggling about in the boot meant it had scratched the reading surface to buggery, so the drive never started again. We had all these catastrophes. We learned. We were the generation that did it and got it wrong so that you could get it right. And I had a friend who was very big into Bitcoin. Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, BSV, as it was and still is, but was a sort of an attempt to break away by one person in particular. And he used to do a YouTube channel, and his problem was he did a lot of it live. I don't do any of mine live; it's all pre-recorded and uploaded. His was live, and he had guests on, and they used to chat, and then he fell foul of YouTube during COVID by saying a few things about COVID that YouTube didn't like, and they just wiped his channel. And there it was, years of content just sort of deleted. So, and he didn't have backups. He hadn't downloaded or kept a copy at the time that he was going live of his video. So I've got some idiot in a black Mercedes behind me, GN67 THK. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Thick, I suppose that stands for. His blue bottle sunglasses following him out my exhaust pipe. He's pulled back a bit, now he's just seen me looking at him. So, what should we talk about? Okay, let's just talk about, for my purposes only, as a social record, historical record, economic record, political record, what's going on. Today, the NHS has said that they're going to start prescribing Manjaro, which is a weight loss drug for people. And it works by, making you feel full up. It works by slowing down the rate at which your food gets digested. So, this is a big thing for the NHS because something like 70% of the population is obese now. But it introduces the topic, really, the thing that ties all these issues together, which is secondary effects. Secondary effects of primary problems. Let's get this on. And by that I mean treating the symptoms rather than the cause is another way of putting it. So they're treating the fact that people are getting obese without trying to work out why they are getting obese. Now, the rise in obesity can be traced back to the mid-1970s, and a lot of people say that's when ultra-processed food, or energy-dense food, if you want to call it that, became available. And we all choose to eat things which are high in fat and sugar and salt because they're tasty, which makes us a nation of crisp eaters, whereas in other parts of Europe, perhaps not so much. But I think lifestyle has a lot to do with it, by which I mean, the government's insistence, and we're very highly taxed as a society, Our tax is, I think, 44% at the moment. It's 38 or 44. And we're more highly taxed now than we've ever been, and we've been promised more taxes on the horizon because the government is giving away more money. And as we know, the government has no money to give away. So the only money it can give away is money it takes off of me and you, and money it prints, which devalues the spending power of our money. So in fact, it's the same as taking it off of me and you, but just using a different or sort of stealthy approach. So we got to the point where wages have fallen so far behind the cost of living that everybody, whereas a man or a woman, you only needed one wage earner in a household. We now need two wage earners in a household. And then if you've got children in the household, then they need to go to daycare, and by making daycare overly prescriptive in terms of, to the point where teachers can't even touch the children to put sun cream on if they're in danger of burning. So what they do is they have to supervise the children putting the sun cream on the other children, which obviously makes a right mess. The effect of that was to make daycare unaffordable, compared to what it used to be. And so now they've got a problem. Then they're trying to subsidise daycare, to roll back the effect of the change that they've instigated, that was their fault, that they caused. And in the energy market, they've just released a 10-year economic plan, and the plan is to try and reduce the cost of electricity to consumers, particularly businesses, because they've got this overall fantasy that we're going to grow ourselves out of our debt. In order to do that, we have to have growth, and there's no sign of any growth at all, really. I think the economy shrunk 0.1% in the last figures, and industry is quite rightly complaining that we've got the most expensive electricity in the world, practically. And the reason is that the government entered into an agreement with supply companies that they would pay the highest rate for any electricity that was on the grid. So, for example, if you had wind power and hydroelectric and LPG power stations, gas power stations, nuclear power stations, basically they use the cheapest first, and then if they ask someone who's more expensive to turn on, they would then pay everybody that higher rate, even the ones that they were paying a lower rate and it doesn't cost them as much to generate. And this was just a government attempt to manipulate the market in an old sort of communist Union of Soviet Socialist Republic way that we love to do things in this country, while still at the same time pretending that we're capitalist and free market. So we've got secondary effects in the electricity industry. They've got, now British Steel went bust, and excuse me. And so the government has sort of nationalised it, has bought it out. Now all of a sudden the government's interested in cheap electricity. Let me just concentrate on getting around this car. And they've done this by abolishing their requirement to contribute to the green levy, which is about 25% of the cost. And, these are industries that are probably amongst the most polluting of all. And all of a sudden they don't have to pay to recondition the atmosphere that they themselves have mucked up. So it's yet another subsidy which the government tends to, have a blind eye towards when it comes to dentistry. No, I'm saying dentistry should be subsidised. In fact, quite the opposite. I think nothing should be subsidised. But the Americans have now just blown up Iran's nuclear processing facilities, or at least the ones they know about, in an attempt to try and stop Iran getting a nuclear bomb. Now, my understanding of the theory of nuclear bombs, the geopolitics of it, is that there was a philosophy called mutually assured destruction, which meant that the best way to stop country A using a nuclear bomb on country B was to make sure that country B had a nuclear bomb, which it could use on country A. And country A would then not use the bomb on country B because they could be assured that as soon as they launched their nukes, country B would launch their nukes, and the two of them would get obliterated. And what happened was it's a weird philosophy because it relies on everybody having a nuclear bomb, and it relies on everybody giving away nuclear bombs to everybody else. Like, you have a nuclear bomb, you have a nuclear bomb. And that was the very long stretch of sort of relative peace, if you don't include Vietnam and etc., Afghanistan and everything, in post-Second World War, 1945, really, to the turn of the millennium, was attributed to the fact that the major players, particularly Russia and America, had nuclear bombs and the ability to blow each other up. So they decided to agree, and take considerable steps to make sure that there was no accidental release of nuclear bombs. So, personally, I would give Iran a nuclear bomb. Now, the argument against that is that they're a bunch of nutcases, and they're going to start threatening and nuclear bombing everybody if you give them the bomb. But not only is that against the mad philosophy, the game theory involved, my personal experience with Iran, bearing in mind I've never met the Ayatollah Khamenei or whatever, and I do understand that they are a despotic theocracy that has no problem at all about subjugating women and torturing political opponents, etc. That they are, for the most part, do like to be alive. And I think basically what they want really is to be left alone to pursue their own particular band of despoticness, or whatever the adjective is. Oh, true love. In much the way as North Korea is. And in much the way that Syria is, and much the way that Afghanistan is. You can't know what's right for other people. You can only say what you do under the circumstances, but you can't really say what they should do. So, Scotland Yard, you know where I am. This is where I work. You're very welcome to come and prescribe me. I mean, to be honest with you, the idiots from the Palestine organisation that sprayed all the red paint into the engines on those bombers, I think they got it coming. Do you know what I mean? I understand the days of that sort of protest are gone. If you're going to break into a secure MOD establishment and render multi-billion pound equipment unserviceable, because those engines will now need to be completely stripped down and cleaned and tested and put back on, then that can be dealt with under existing law. That's already illegal. You don't have to have any new prescription laws for that. Just prescribing it, these organisations, I think, is tantamount to suppressing our right to protest against the actions of our government without fear of physical force being used in retribution. We're allowed to maintain our disapproval. Anyway, but we're not allowed to go and break into MOD bases and sabotage stuff. So, but prescribing them, mainly because of the fact that they've got an opinion, which is, that the UK and US and Israel complicit in probably history's greatest genocide, I think is tantamount to suppressing free speech. And I think free speech is suppressed because I have not seen any public opinion polls on whether or not the UK should support the US and Israel in what they're doing in Gaza. Just don't see those. And the only reason I can assume that I haven't seen those is because they are wildly against UK government policy, and that makes them unpublishable. Anyway, that's just me thinking out loud. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.